Hi, Joe here, and today I want to talk to you about what it is that you need to do once that you have made that decision to become wealthy. Now, the decision itself is a pretty easy one, and you can make it in almost an instant. But starting that journey is more difficult. You need to know where you're going and what you need to do to get you started. And here I'm talking about building solid foundations. Because you know what? I see so many people starting on this journey for wealth, not really knowing where they're going, but they're trying to start halfway along the journey. So, halfway along the roadmap to somewhere where they don't really know where they're going. And you know what? Sometimes there is no wonder that they don't get there. But even if you do know where you're going, there are some things that you need to do to build some solid foundations. And if you don't build solid foundations, you know what? You may get to where you want to go. You may get the wealth that you want. You may even retain it. But there's always that risk that you're not going to get to completion because the foundations are so rocky. Or perhaps you'll get to the final destination, but then everything will come crumbling down. And you know what? That's not a nice position to be in because I've been there. And there's, so much hard work that you put into creating a level of wealth, but then to lose it all because you didn't get the basics right and didn't build solid foundations is very, very soul destroying. So it is worth the effort right now at the beginning of the journey. And even if you started the journey, you can still go back and build those solid foundations. So, like I said, you need to know where you're going. That's the first step. So you need to work out what wealthy looks like for you. So you can be doing this whilst you're building your starting building the foundations to wealth, but you certainly need to know where you're heading. You need to know what wealthy looks like for you. So what's your definition of wealthy? Perhaps you want to term it this way. What is your definition of financial freedom? Because then you have the answer to why money is important to you, because you're going to need money and you're going to need a certain amount of it. How much you'll need depends on your definition of being wealthy and having financial freedom. So it is worth knowing, what will your life look like when you are wealthy, and just get really specific, as specific as you can get. And once you've got specific, you can actually start to work out how much this lifestyle is actually going to cost you. How much you're going to need in the bank, how much you're going to need to be generating each year in income from whatever source to be able to live that lifestyle that you are aiming for. You might be in for a pleasant surprise. It might cost you far less than what you first imagined. So it is worth doing that exercise, getting specific in the first place, and then putting a cost to it. But once you've got specific about where it is that you're heading, you can start to create an action plan of the things that you need to upgrade in your life to take you closer to where you want to be, or, also the things that you need to start doing, because maybe there are some elements that you're not even they're not even on your radar at the moment, maybe, or maybe they are, but you aren't doing anything in relation to this item because you think, well, I'm not wealthy yet. And that is, so disappointing when I see people say, when I hear them say that they want to do something, but, well, I can do it once I'm earning more money or more wealthy. There are often ways you can start along that process and start doing something before you get to being wealthy. Don't let that hold you back. But I mentioned upgrades. They're the things that we're going to do one thing at a time, or we'll do one thing at a time if they are big steps, but we can take several little steps together. And certainly we can do those by evaluating your life now and just seeing what several little, small steps that you can take to upgrade your life now. It is worth remembering, if you want to jump from economy to first class in one go, it is a pretty big leap and it's hard to do in all areas of your life. So maybe you just need to be taking a few areas and jump into premium economy, then taking another few areas, jump into premium economy, and then taking those and maybe jumping then to the next level, and so on, and do it that way. But also bringing in a little gratitude, be thankful for the things that you have now, even if they are economy versions, because you know what, you still have them and there will be people that don't have them. So there is something to be grateful for there, but also to acknowledge the things that you have that are already first class and that absolutely don't need an upgrade. So for me, for example, my phone, I probably will upgrade it because I'm still on an iPhone 7 and I don't know what iPhones are on, about 10, 11 now. But you know what, I'm not that bothered about technology. So yeah, I might upgrade it in the normal course of things, but earning a lot more money than I am now, and it's something that is not going to be particularly upgraded because, well, it's about as good as it's going to get. And now I know if you're an Android user, you probably think, well, an iPhone isn't as good as it gets, but I think you know what I mean. There are some things that you wouldn't change just because you had a whole lot more money. So make sure that you acknowledge them and realize that you already have those in your life. I also talked about a moment ago about starting to do new things. You know, if your idea of a wealthy lifestyle is to spend some time and money helping the causes, for example, that are close to your heart, you can start now. Even if it is just a little bit, you know, maybe you can't give the amount of money or spend the amount of time that you'd like to, and that you will be able to do once you have financial freedom, once you are wealthy. You can make that conscious decision to start now and just give a little bit of time when you can, even if you don't have loads, and maybe start giving a little bit of money, whatever you can afford. And it's just something then you can then bring into your upgrade program and just upgrade those activities. But you can start them now. You can start small. That's fantastic for a lot of these causes, because for a lot of people, if you know if the causes is something that you're interested in spending your time and money around, then if everybody gave a little bit, then that's fantastic, because it comes to a whole lot. You don't have to wait till you're wealthy. But maybe it's other things, not just causes. Maybe there are other activities. But again, you can start small and start now. So once you've got all that worked out, there are a few things that you need to do in the, you know, practical elements of building that solid foundation. So you know where you're headed. You're building up your route map of how you're going to get there, one upgrade at a time. But what are the things that you need to do to start building that wealth foundation? There are a few things. You need to learn to pay yourself first, use debt wisely, make sure that you're living within your means, below your means, have your emergencies covered, eliminate toxic money habits, and improve your financial literacy. So there's nothing really too difficult there. You just need to start doing these things. So the first one, pay yourself first. Well, you know what? So many of people have good intentions to save, but they just don't. There's always something else to prioritize. You know, here's the thing. Prioritizing bills should not be your priority. Paying yourself first should be the priority. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean, when I say pay yourself first, I'm talking about not just for the here and now. I'm talking about creating that wealth, that foundation, that future. So in terms of your business, something like Profit First, if you've read the book by Mike Makowitz, you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, put that book on your reading list, particularly if you're in business, because it relates to business finances. But here, with a Profit First kind of system, with that money strategy, you're putting the emphasis on generating profit, and the expenses come out of what's left. So you are paying yourself first. In the personal money strategy that I talk to my clients about, we are being concerned with improving our net worth. So we are putting ourselves first. What do I mean by net worth? Well, quite simply, it's a calculation of, in monetary terms, of how much you're worth, and it's the value of all your assets, so everything you own, less the value of your liabilities, so that's everything you owe out. And to improve your net worth figure, there are only two ways you can do it: increase your assets or decrease your liabilities. So in practical terms of where you are at now, the emphasis then is on saving. So that's increasing the assets, it's increasing the things that you own, and decreasing debts if you have them, and in particular consumer debt. So we're decreasing liabilities. So the emphasis there, no matter which you're doing, and if you've got debts, you're doing both, saving debts and saving and decreasing debts. And if you've got no debts, then you just concentrate on saving. But either way, you're increasing your net worth, and that's where the emphasis is. Paying yourself first means allocating your money to paying into savings and repaying your debt. The lifestyle stuff comes later. And if you're in business, actually, this is great for focusing on generating more money, because if you're making sure that you're saving and paying off your debts first, and you're just living your lifestyle out of what's left, you're going to want to go out and generate more money. But at the same time, you're also building a strong wealth foundation. So paying yourself first not only sets you up for building wealth, but it changes the way that you look at the money that you are earning. It gives you that different focus. It also says to the universe, so if you're a big law of attraction fan, that will be particularly relevant to you, but it also confirms to your unconscious mind that you are prioritizing your finances. You are prioritizing them, so therefore you are welcoming in even more money, because you know what you're going to do with it. You know what? Money loves to have a home, and by prioritizing it, putting emphasis on money to a constructive use is giving it a great home. So from a money mindset point of view, for all those people that say to themselves, well, I'm no good with money, and have those kind of beliefs going on in the mind, doing something like this and following these wealth foundation building items I'm talking about today helps you. By taking action on them, it's going to help you change your money mindset, because you know what, if you do all these, then you are good with money. Money doesn't have to be complicated. It's just these simple things that you need to implement, build these strong foundations, and then you are good with money. The second item is to use debt wisely, if you are actually going to use it at all. You know, debt puts so much pressure on us. It puts constraints on us. It's kind of like a modern day slavery. It just shackles us to that 9-to-5 job, you know, not being able to leave the job and go out and be self-employed, and a whole host of things. It just ties us to that money-making activities, because we've jumped on a treadmill that it is hard to get off, but you can get off that treadmill. That's the thing. So in the future, you're going to use debt wisely and create that good money habit of decreasing your amount of debt on a systematic basis through paying yourself first. And I do get, though, that, you know, it does seem pretty unavoidable in modern society to have debt, but just remember this, it is possible. There are those of us who don't have consumer debt and don't have, you know, mortgages or car loans, and we can live that lifestyle. It is possible to do that. Also remember that, of course, not all debt is created equal. If you had 100,000 debt, just think about this, £100,000 worth of debt, dollars, whatever your currency is, and you had it in student debt. Compare that to having it as a mortgage, and then compare that to having that 100k as a loan to buy a car. There is different emphasis on each of those items, and that's what we need to do when we take on debt. We need to weigh up the factors. Student debt, well, yes, that's inevitable if you want to be able to enhance your career and earn more money. A mortgage to buy property, there's debates whether it's a good idea if you're buying your own home, because are you buying something that's really an asset? Well, that's a debate for another day, but certainly going out and getting a mortgage on property, if it's done properly, that's going to, and that property is going to generate some rental income for you, then that is something worth considering. But taking out 100k to buy a car, that's a completely different set of factors, and you've really got to weigh up the pros and cons of that. Probably if you need to borrow 100k to buy a car, it's some flash car, and actually you can't afford it if you need to borrow that amount of money. And just because people are willing to give you that money and it seems acceptable in society that people pay for things like cars by using finance. That is a decision where at that kind of level, you need to own up to it, and you are actually buying something that you can't afford. Here's the thing as well, financial freedom, it requires you to be unshackled from your consumer debt. So getting that flash car if you can't afford it, and other things that you can't afford that are consumer debt, it's not worth having, because you're just taking yourselves further and further off course when it comes to getting towards financial freedom. So just think twice before you take on any more consumer debt. Then the third item that I talked about was living below your means. Here I'm talking about not getting into more debt again. So not spending on credit cards, not worrying about how you're going to be paying your bills. I appreciate there are circumstances where people's incomes dropped and they have a set of living expenses might just become difficult to pay the bills, or they're on an extremely low wage. I'm not talking about those circumstances. I'm talking about them, when a person's got a good job or is starting to earn some good money from their self-employment activities. A lot of the time, we're still not living below your means, even though we're earning good money. I get it, retail therapy, spending gives us that feel-good factor, but it also helps us to develop a taste which is beyond our current wealth set point, and that doesn't help us build a solid foundation. So we need to bring down our spending and just spend within our means. Now, we do often actually avoid living within our means because we think it means that we need to go without. Nobody wants to go without, especially when society is telling us we can have everything now. We don't have to go without. But do you know what? You can actually budget. And I do bring in that term. I know people think of budgets as something very constraining, but budgets can actually help you to make sure that you are living within your means. So you're covering the essentials, you're saving, you're repaying your debt, and then what is left is for your lifestyle. So with a personal money strategy, which I hinted about earlier, it's just about dividing your money up into buckets of money. Once you get paid, whether that's from your job or you take money out of your business, so that you've got a pot of money for the essentials, you've got a pot of money for all your savings, a pot of money to repay all your debt, and then what you've got left is a pot of money that's your lifestyle account. And actually, I get a lot of my clients to actually name on their banking app, name that account with what's left as the lifestyle account. I still call my account in this bracket, I still call it the lifestyle account. I know that's what I've got to live my lifestyle in the here and now, knowing that I've got my basics covered with the essentials account and I am saving. I've got no debt to repay, so I don't need that account. But it is a great feeling, and you're knowing then that you're living a lifestyle that isn't stopping you from paying your bills, and it isn't hindering your future because you've got your savings covered. Then item number 4 in building a wealth foundation is to keep money aside for emergencies. Having cash available for emergencies gives you peace of mind and stops you from relying on other sources such as credit cards when those emergencies arise. Now, you should be aiming for around 5 to 6 months of expenses. And often I find if you came off work or you became ill and couldn't earn money, then actually 6 months worth of expenses, having that covered gives you such peace of mind if that ever happens to you. Now, if you're in debt and your emphasis is on repaying your debt, then aiming for getting savings at 6 months worth of expenses is kind of like a long shot when there are other priorities such as repaying the debt. So start with a lower amount, £500 to £1,000, until you've got your debt down, and then you can start to build money aside for emergencies. But at least with that core of like the £500 to £1,000 for emergency funds, that will help you, if you've got emergency car repairs or the washer breaks and things like that, so you're not adding to your debt. And you can work on the other emergencies, like you can be out of work or something like that. You can work on that later, but you make a start. and then you can build from there. Again, it's about making small steps and actually starting. The fifth item on this list is to eliminate your toxic money habits. You get rid of them and you switch them out and replace them with good money habits. And having good money habits, that helps you to work smart, not hard, when it comes to dealing with your finances. So what are good money habits? Well, they're steering clear of debt and systematically repaying down any debt that you have. It's about making a plan for your money, so that's budgeting. It's about spending consciously, so switching off the autopilot button and make sure that you're only spending on things that you really need, not frivolous things that are wants. It's nice to buy some wants, yes, but weigh up whether they are actually worth you buying. Do you really want to buy it now and forego having that money for the future? So, like I said, it's just about switching off that autopilot money button. Then it's about saving. The good money habits is saving. Save on automatic. So set up an automatic transfer. Even if you're starting really, really small, at, I don't know what it would be, but maybe just put in a £10 a month into an account just to get you going. Do it automatically and you're starting that process. And then every 90 days, because this is a good system, no matter what level you're starting to save at, every 90 days, increase the amount of your automatic savings payments by 10%. Every 90 days, and you'll soon ramp up your savings and you'll get more used to saving as well. So that's a great money habit to be in. Also, talk about money. Make sure that you're talking about your financial situation with your partner, if you have one, and if you have children, just watch what you're saying to them as well and have conversations, because we get a lot of our money beliefs, and for a lot of us, that they are not very good beliefs. They have been limiting us. We get those beliefs from things that we've overheard, and we've put our spin on things as a child because we weren't talked to directly about money in a good way. So we kind of filled in the gaps from bits that we overheard and saw. That's not the way to learn about money. So if you want your kids to have a different grasp on money and a different way of doing things to what you do, you don't want them struggling the way that you've struggled where money is concerned, then start talking to them about it. The other money habit that you want to get rid of is to stop trying to keep up with the Joneses. You don't know what their financial situation is. They might have an extremely rocky financial foundation. So why try and keep up with them? Then the final step to all of this, to building this solid, if I can get my words out, this solid financial foundation, is to up the level of your money literacy, your financial literacy. Now, I read somewhere recently that was about 57% of adult Americans had a good grasp of financial literacy. But that means there's a staggering 43% who don't. And I am sure that it is a similar situation in the UK and other countries like Canada and Australia. We all tend to have similar percentages in these areas. So that's just something worth thinking about. Increasing your knowledge about personal finances. If you're in business, it means increasing your knowledge of business finances and of money management. And you can do that by taking courses, watching videos, reading books, but start to build up that knowledge, and then you can take action from there on things like saving, retirement, reducing debt, paying taxes, knowing what taxes you need to pay when you're in business. And then you can start combining all that with your money mindset work. And then at that point, you're going to make a real impact on that journey towards financial freedom. So I hope that's helped today. Certainly there is plenty to think about there, but if you follow all those steps that I've just mentioned, then you're going to build yourself a solid wealth foundation and start making progress on your roadmap to achieving the level of financial freedom that you desire. So until next time, that's it from me.